Hello, hello, beautiful souls. Lisa here. And today I want to dive into overthinking, the mental prison, and all that goes along with it. I was in a store earlier this week, and this woman turned to me and asked me out of nowhere, how do I stop overthinking? And then I've talked to several other people throughout this week where we're just like trapped. We're trapped and chained by our minds. And I'm curious as to how does this affect you all? You know, like where are you at? Scale of 1 to 10. How's the thoughts? How's them thoughts treating you? And I have personally made major shifts and changes in my thoughts. And it is like night and day from where I was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago even. And like I can tell you, these thoughts are dark and twisty. I know for me, there's a lot of thoughts that I had that I've never shared with anybody because I was judging myself for the thoughts I was having. Like, what kind of monster has this shit going on inside of their head, you know? But the more that I talk to people and connect with people, I realize that we all have these. We all have these dark and twisty thoughts of what could happen. For me, it was always like my mind would play out all scenarios, good and bad, mostly bad though. And it was like the most violent, awful, bad scenario that could possibly happen would be the one that my mind was like, yep, that's the one. Let's go on a spiral with that one. So, like, I know what it feels like to feel so controlled by the mind. And I'm also here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. And oftentimes what we will do whenever we're just overstimulated, maybe just too many thoughts, like it's like the thought train never stops. Like you can't sleep at night, you can't function because the thoughts in your mind are telling you all these crazy things, right? And really what it boils down to, in my opinion, is creating this separation between yourself and your thoughts, right? Because the truth of the matter is that we all have these thoughts. We all have distressing thoughts. We all see the future play out in really bad ways, and it's based on like our past experiences and what we're consuming on a daily basis. So like for right now, for example, everything is really stirred up. You know, the world seems like it's very chaotic and there's a lot of hate going on. And when we watch that, it affects us. It affects our thoughts, absolutely. The music we listen to, the movies we watch, the social media we consume, the groups that we put ourselves into, they all have an effect on our thoughts. I personally don't believe that we can actually control our thoughts. Like for me, I don't know where my thoughts come from. And I can't say, oh, I don't want to think that one, I want to think this one, necessarily. They just pop up out of nowhere. And it's not like I did anything to make it happen other than, you know, live my life. So these thoughts come from external conditioning, society, movies, like all these things. So we cannot control when they come in or how they come in. And then oftentimes what happens is that we identify with these thoughts. You know I've done this. I've had really bad, dark thoughts and then thought I was a bad person because I had that thought. Now, just because I had the thought doesn't mean that I acted on it. It doesn't mean that it is who I am or even what I want to be thinking. You know, that's the thing. Like, why do I keep thinking these terrible thoughts? That's how it felt whenever I was in the depths of my dark, dark thoughts. Like, where are they coming from and how can I make it stop? And then what we do is we identify with the thought and we make ourselves feel like we're a bad person for having this thought. And then we try and numb it. We try and make it go away. We keep ourselves busy, you know? Well, if I do this, then I won't be thinking. And then if I do this, then I won't be thinking. And then it keeps you like running and running and running. And you're running from these thoughts. You're running from your mind. You do not have time to slow down. I know whenever I first started this journey, I couldn't sit with my thoughts. Like, it was terrible, terrible pain. And uncomfortable, but learning that I'm not my thoughts. And just because I have bad thoughts doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It means that I am a person. I'm a person that's here living on this earth, taking in what's happening around me. And that, you know, does whatever it does in your brain that pops these thoughts off, right? So whenever you have this thought, question it. What was the trigger? What triggered that thought? This is called the ABCD method, and it's used in cognitive behavioral therapy. And it really was where I started. I started therapy in 2021, and this was one of the very first things that I did. And I mean, my thoughts were very irrational. Very irrational. And I knew that they were irrational, but they were still creating these sensations in my body that felt so real. So it's like kind of cognitive dissonance within yourself is going on when this happens, because you're having these irrational thoughts and you know that they're irrational and that you don't want them, but you don't know how to turn it off. So figuring out what activated it, that's the A, activating trigger. And then looking to your belief. Like, what do you believe about that thought? Like, you can have a thought in your head. Like, one of my really big ones back in 2021, I had a lot of issues with jealousy in regards to my partner. And I know where it came from. Like, my experiences in my past, I watched my mother be super jealous, and I know where she got it because her mother was also that way. And so it made sense, but I still didn't like it. I didn't like feeling jealous. I didn't like, you know, accusing my partner of things that he wasn't doing. But the feeling inside of me was so real. I couldn't shake it. And so learning what the trigger was, what is triggering this, and then what is my belief around the thought? My belief was always that he was going to run off with somebody and that I was going to be alone, right? So the belief under it is like, it's really a fear of abandonment and believing that he is doing something, you know, even though there was no proof, no evidence, like, it was just my thoughts. And then the C is the consequences. So that's in your body. Like, does your heart start racing really fast? Does it feel like it's going to beat out of your chest? Is your face red? Are you sweating? Like, is the feeling in your stomach? So you can look at these physical consequences of that thought, because that's how the brain works. You think a thought, your brain doesn't know if it's real or not. Your brain assumes everything is real, and that's why whenever we have these dark and twisty thoughts, it literally feels like it's happening in real life. So this is why it's important to notice that. And then the D is kind of like rewriting this story. I don't know what the D stands for off the top of my head, but it's like, is this really true? You know, is this thought really true? Is this really happening? Like bringing yourself back to the here and now. And like, is this happening right now? And 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's not. It's not happening right now. It's in your head, and because your brain is thinking it, your body feels it, because the signals happen instantaneously. So really going through that process, anytime I felt like I was unraveling, like putting a stop sign up in my head and saying, hey, I have this thought. It doesn't define me. It isn't who I am. Get curious about it. Like, where did it come from? You know, maybe I'm watching something that I can take a break from and see if my thoughts transpire a little differently, you know? And just putting that stop sign up, creating that space in there, and then asking, questioning, is this thought actually true? You know, and then feeling the sensations in your body. And that's an important part too. But it doesn't, like, it's a little separate from the overthinking. Meditation, 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 meditation. Like, and I'm not talking about you have to sit a certain way in a certain place. It's not all of that. It is like literally just watching your thoughts. Taking a moment to close your eyes and breathe and try to focus on your breath. Thoughts are gonna come. There's no stopping that, okay? You're not doing it wrong when the thoughts come. So you're trying to focus on your breath, and then a thought pops in. You can be like, oh, well, that's interesting. And then bring yourself back to the breath. That's all it is. That's all meditation is watching your thoughts, getting curious about them, bringing your awareness back into your body, noticing when another thought pops off. Oh, that's interesting. Let me bring it back into my body. It might be rough at first. It might be hard at first. But I'm telling you, it is the answer. It is the magic sauce. It is like, I went from constant bashing myself and just all these thoughts of every possible negative outcome that could ever happen to me, to the people I love, to the people in my community, and the people of the world. I went from that, like this just like barn fire in my mind, right? Meanwhile, projecting out to everyone that I'm a happy, good person, you know, like everything's cool. But inside of here, there was like a war going on. So much fear, because that's what happens whenever you have these thoughts, right? Especially if they're unchecked. So much fear. And I went from that, and now it's like, I mean, I have thoughts that come in, but they're normally not negative. Normally my self-talk is like really empowering and loving, like how I want to treat my daughter or my best friend. That's how I actually treat myself on an internal level now. And my head is just like, it's clear. And I can sleep. I can be present. A lot of times these thoughts interfere with our ability to be present. And if we're not present in the moment, then the moment is passing us by. You know, if we're stuck in the past, we're worried about the future, we're missing the now. And the now is the only thing that is real. So having these thoughts take you over basically imprisons you. You're in prison. Your own mental prison with your own chains. But the good news is you can set yourself free. You have the key. It's just taking the time to slow it down and to disidentify with these thoughts. You are not your thoughts. We all have them. It doesn't make you bad. It makes you a human. Learning to not believe them. You get to decide. You know, sometimes we have bad thoughts and maybe the thing does happen, you know? Like maybe it is worth believing it. But a lot of the times we have these thoughts and we believe it with no evidence. And they're really irrational. And it's just because of our past traumas, our past conditioning, or what we saw on the TV yesterday. You know, like, it's really wild. Our brains are so wild, y'all. And they literally believe whatever you put in it is happening. So be careful what you're putting in. Look at it. And then decide, do you want to agree with that thought? Do you believe it? Is it true? Is it what you actually are, what you actually want? And if it's not, that's okay. Like, let it go. It can come and it can go. And you just watch it. Watch yourself thinking the thought. And that's what meditation is. So yeah, if you are on the struggle bus with your thoughts, I highly recommend just 5 minutes a day, maybe twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. You can do guided ones, or you can just sit outside and tune into your body. Where are you breathing? Like, how's that going? Noticing when your mind tries to take you somewhere else. And watching that. You're the observer. You are not the thoughts. You're not your body. You're not your feelings. You are so much bigger than that. And it really is such like a liberating feeling. I will say to take control of your thoughts, but really you're not. You're just like disidentifying from them. Like they come in and you can be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why I think that, you know? And then getting curious about it, figuring out what beliefs are, what needs you have that need to be met, meeting them. All of that is really important too. But I think the very first step in all of this is really analyzing what your internal narrative is and being honest about that, you know? Being honest about that. How do you talk to yourself? What are the conversations in your head like? What are your dark and twisty thoughts? Are you ashamed of them? Or are you curious? Oh, I'm going to be starting this group. It's going to be called Master You. I'm not sure when I'm starting it yet. This is actually the first time that I'm even talking about it in public, but it's going to be a 6-week course, and we're going to be going over mindset, you know, the thoughts, and we're going to be going over emotions and how to actually feel them, how to actually get the message, and then some soul work. And by the end of the 6 weeks, I imagine you will feel like a completely different person. Much lighter, more free, and closer to yourself. It's going to be a small group so that it'll be more intimate. And we're just going to dive in and work together to liberate ourselves. And I'm really excited to offer this. So stay tuned. I love you guys. Bye.